UFOs are real, burgeoning, not going away. I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli, coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains. Thanks for joining us today. This just came across. This is March 27th. It's dated, but it'll probably post this Sunday coming up. J.D. Vance says he thinks aliens are demons. Declares he will use top security clearance to visit Area 51. Gee, where we heard this before? We'll get into that. So much more. First, a word from our very trusted sponsor. A popular looks maxing streamer said Gavin Newsom would beat J.D. Vance in the 2028 election because Vance was overweight and Gavin is better looking. But then J.D. Vance showed up to a recent interview looking completely transformed just weeks of the comment. Everyone's pointing to GLP-1 type drugs, the same type of weight loss drugs that 31 million Americans are on. But here's the thing, you don't need a prescription or a needle to get those results. Folks, this is why I love this particular GLP-1 supplement. Instead of a pharmaceutical override, it uses plant-based, clinically studied ingredients like metabolate to help my body naturally boost its own hunger-controlling signals. I get the same fullness and fewer cravings without the prescriptions, needles, or the growing list of side effects that are making headlines. It supports my weight management while protecting my metabolism so I can keep the results for good. To kick off spring, get 51% off only at healthwithla.com. Every order comes with a free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, free express shipping with subscriptions. Once again, healthwithla.com. Folks, I take it every day, and guess what? My love handles are diminishing. Once again, healthwithla.com, healthwithla.com. This is amazing. Joanne is going to show you a couple of times in the last 6 months where I have said exactly that. Now, my suggestion was an executive order. These guys need to go in, find out what's there. So the problem with this is J.D. Vance has tipped his hand. And now Area 51 knows he's coming. So it's like, well, I'm sorry, Vice President, but you can't go down that corridor because that's where all the good stuff is. Look, as far as I know, and I've talked about this numerous times, and John Adam will show you a little compilation of just, me saying exactly the same thing, what Donald Trump needs to do to get to the bottom of this, not only Area 51, but right path. I believe that all the discs from the Roswell 1947 crash is at right path. I think the film is at right path because they have film. And isn't it interesting how Steven Spielberg in his trailer, number 2, he shows this, something like this, okay? And this is how you make movies. You have this little deal here and you go, click, J.D. Vance film. But except in his film, it says Roswell, entity number 5 or number 2, whatever, and the date is July 7th, 1947. All I know is it's there. The question is it real footage? More than likely, it's not real footage, but what if it is? How would you and I even ascertain? Because the magic of Hollywood, I mean, it looks old. It looks like black and white, 1947, real. That's what it looks like. So what if Spielberg is going to tip his hand? What if he's been fed this information? Huge deal. It's a big what if on my part, and I understand that. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's total conjecture. However, we never know. But he's referencing it in the film. He's referencing it. And then there's a scene, and I have no idea what I'm looking at, but it's under some sort of canopy. Is that where the disc is? Is it Hangar 84? We don't know. And that's why we're all waiting for the film. So the last president that may have actually been in Area 51 is Richard Nixon. Conjecture. How do we know that? Because Jackie Gleason, it's actually in one of our films. We show the clip. I think it's in the very first film on UFO disclosure, shameless plug. And Gleason, before he died, spilled the beans on this. It was in the National Enquirer, so nobody believes that, and yet I believe it's the truth. Gleason went in with President Nixon to Area 51. He was shown the bodies. So, we show the clips in the film, the little newspaper headings and all this stuff. So why is Jackie Gleason lying? I don't think he is. Look, this phenomena has been covered up literally for decades, since 1947 at Roswell in Mexico. And I promise you, I will get to the article. So this is, these are, reproductions. I've shown this a Brazilian times, but there it is right there. And that date is July 8th, 1947. RAAF captures flying saucer. So the people who are promulgating the weather balloon theory, in my opinion, are out to lunch someplace. And we went to the debris field. It's in our film. And we pulled out metal, and we've had the metal tested. It's between two known aluminum alloys. And it's all in our film. I'm not making this up. So why would, if it was really just a weather balloon, why would they lead with this? Why would they say RAAF captures flying saucer? And then the next, Ramey empties Roswell saucer, excitement not justified. And what does Ramey say? What does Ramey tell us it was? The bundle of tinfoil, broken wood beams, and rubber remnants of a balloon. So you see what I'm saying? Why would they lead with the saucer story first and then cover it up with the balloon if we're trying to cover up that it's some sort of secret, whatever? They got it right the first time. In our film, Tim Alberino states right on the record, they got it right. This is the truth right here. And then the kibosh came down. And Ramey, and this is where we did the film Exoneration, where we interviewed Jesse Marcel Jr.'s widow, his daughter, one of his closest friends, and Marcel Jr. maintained that it was not a weather balloon till the day he died. And that's as close as you can get. That's as close as you can get to the actual evidence. And I interviewed him. I interviewed Jesse Marcel Jr. years ago. And that is in the film. We do a reenactment of that film. Roswell, Exoneration. That's the first film. Roswell, in the debris field. We were in Hangar 84. We filmed all that. Okay, so there's been a cover-up. J.D. Vance says he thinks aliens are demons. Okay, we need to walk through this because demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Fallen angels can just appear. They have an eternal body. Granted, this is conjecture. Granted, over the millennia of not being in the presence of the holy God, had they lost some of their appearance, even though they can appear as an angel of light, but there's physicality. We know this because when the angels visit Abraham, right? And I've written about this. Manuel Gonzalez has talked about it. Gary Stearman has talked about it. A lot of other people have talked about it. They sit down and they have a banquet together with Abraham. Then the two angels go into Sodom and Gomorrah. The men of the city won't have sex with them. They are physical. They are real. The fallen angels, the same thing. They're not phantoms. They're not spirits. Demons are the disembodied spirits of a Nephilim that perished during the flood. So fallen angel, cohabiting, having sex with women, mixing the seed, creating a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. It's the reason for the flood. And this was the standard interpretation until the knucklehead Julius Africanus invented the Sethite theory, and here we are. That's what's taught in the seminaries. So Genesis 3:15 is pushed to the side. Really doesn't mean what it says. It says what it means. Oh, no. Seed war? Nah, not really. It's a seed war. It's a seed war. Absolutely a seed war. Thank you, Gary Stearman, for illuminating that to all of us over a decade ago now. So let's get into this. So with all due respect, Vice President Vance, it's a mixture. The grays, I believe, are avatars. They're meat suits. The demons need something to inhabit. They either inhabit a person, an animal, or an object. And I say this a lot. So those of you who come here every day, well, LA, you're repeating yourself. Well, I have to because new people come and they're not sure what they're looking at. Demons, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, need something to manifest in our dimension, whether it be a person, an animal, or an object. Fallen angels do not need anything. They can just appear. They can just appear. And I don't want to see one. Thank you very much. Conjecture. And notice I always say conjecture because we don't know. Are the tall whites, which are part of UAP, UFO lore, very tall, they kind of float around, is that what a fallen angel really looks like? Because they have been out of the presence of a living God for millennia. And have they atrophied in some sense? They can't be killed because they're immortal beings, but have they atrophied? I don't know. Does an angel get some of its sustenance just from being in the presence of a living God? I don't know. These are things and questions which I ponder, I think about, but it's why it's interesting discussion. I'm not hanging my hat on it because we don't know, but it's conjecture. I'm putting something out there, and we could decide on it. All right. Vice President J.D. Vance recently sat down with conservative commentator Benny Johnson to discuss several hot topics, including for all the state of America and aliens. The topic of aliens and UFOs got brought up when Johnson asked the vice president, "You're going to release all the UFO files?" Vance responded, "We're working on it." The vice president continued, "I'm obsessed with this. I have already had a couple of times when I'm like, we are going out to Area 51, but the timing of the trip didn't work out. I don't think they are aliens. I think they're demons anyway. But that's a long discussion," added Vance. Johnson then asked Vance to expand. Vance then explained, "When I hear about sort of extranatural phenomena, that's where I go to. Is the Christian understanding that there's a lot of good out there, but there's also some evil out there. I think that's one of the devil's great tricks, is to convince people he never existed." And so this is basically it. Let me just see if there's anything else here. And in the last several months, the topic of aliens and UFOs been in the spotlight. Yes, there's Barack Obama. We've already covered this in one of our other shows. So, and Trump responded to Obama saying that aliens are real, and Trump kind of gave him a little slap on the wrist. Obama's not supposed to be doing this. He made a big mistake giving out classified information. And there's let me just run this real quick. Here we go.
So we did get a lot of attention as Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he had classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. The aliens are real. Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. You made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion of it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. So you believe it here?
Well, at the press, they can declassify anything that he wants to, so he only anything about it.
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
We know illegal aliens, really.
Yeah, illegal.
All right, so that's Trump saying that Obama shouldn't have done that, and I think that wraps it up. Yeah, that wraps it up. So what you need to understand, what we need to come to an understanding that this has been, they've known about this since 1947, and in UFO lore, the Vatican there was a crash in Italy in the 30s, I believe, and then in Germany there was a crash. In the film Disclosure, which is an amazing film, which led us to our conference, Deception 2026, where we had 10 speakers. And you can go to lamarzulli.com. You can watch it for $20. Watch all 10 speakers. Who does that? And, Runs of Disclosure is in the background here. But, I mean, this book, we're up, runsofdisclosure.com. I think we're up to run number 27. Something like that. The book only has 18. So every new rung up the ladder of disclosure, I do a video. So you can go there and watch all that for free. But you need to get the book because that'll set the stage for where we're going. UFOs are real, and they are not going away. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So the question is, when will Vance show up? How does he know he's seeing all of it? Because they control the base. I mean, they control the base. And this will be very interesting to see if he actually gets in there. Is he just going to go in alone over the film crew with some senators, congressmen, whatever? We don't know. So, this should have been done. If I were king of the forest, but I'm not. But if I was, I would go to Right Pat and go to Area 51 unannounced with, a bunch of Marines because they don't want me there. And I get that. So that's what it should be done. Anyway, I do find it interesting that this was announced, and I have been saying this now for several months, and John will show you the compilation, or maybe I'm not sure where he's going to put it in this show, but John Adam will show you me saying the very same thing 2 or 3 times. So bully for Vice President Vance. My hat is off to them. For those of you who are watching that are part of our government, I am available. I'm just a warm, fuzzy guy, so I've been in this field for literally decades, warning about it. This is the coming Great Deception because it does change everything. When the announcement is made, it changes everything. It changes the entire global structure in a nanosecond like that. And this is where we're headed. That's it. Thanks so much for watching. I am your intrepid host, Elliot Marzulli. The Waiting Room is the #1 new release in audiobooks. We want to thank you for your patronage. I think it was number 6 in Christian bereavement, that type of, in death, and dealing with all that. So we're very proud of that, and it's hanging in there. So here's an incredible trailer teaser made by our friends over at Charisma. I want to thank Chad and John and Justin for putting this together. And more about this in the upcoming days. So here's the trailer. I'll see you again tomorrow. God bless you. I would say this, and I've said this before recently. I don't believe anyone has gone in, no standing president has gone into Area 51, where a lot of secrets are kept, and right, Pat, since the days of Richard Nixon. Nobody's gotten in there. That's conjecture. I don't know that. That's why our president needs to have a executive order and, have congressmen, a select group of congressmen, senators, whatever, people of government, scientists, physicists, heads of state, whatever, go into Area 51 and right, Pat, we want to see what's there. Open it all up. Open it up now. People from the press. See, I disagree with Obama when he says there's no subterranean stuff underneath. That's where it's all at. Give me a break. Who knows how deep it goes? I know it's that way at Right Pat. Can I say with certainty that it's not, that it's there at Area 51? No, I can't. I do have a source at Right Pat who talks about sections which are under guard 24/7. You can't go there. And the smell of formaldehyde permeates the air. Take that and do with it what you will. I have been talking about the UFO phenomena. I called it way back in 1998 that this is the coming Great Deception. That was based on scripture, specifically where it says God sends them strong delusion, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, I believe, because they did not believe the truth. Well, what is the truth? In the beginning was the Word. Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were made by him, through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. That's it. That's the truth. So God, Jesus, spoke everything into existence. He holds all things together. There's no doubt about that. Well, if you're an atheist, there's a big doubt about that. You're not going to go with it. If you're a Darwinist, oh, no God, it's religion. It just started all the trouble in the world. I get that. And you can make a case that what we're looking at in the Middle East is because the current political landscape is in direct correlation to supernatural events that happened in some cases millennia ago. So you've got the Shia branch of Islam, warring against everybody now. They've declared war on all the resorts on the entire globe. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. So the revelations of Muhammad have certainly colored the body politic. The revelations that we have in our Bible, specifically with Moses receiving the 10 Commandments, the burning bush, the 10 Commandments, the Exodus, all this point to another set of supernatural events which have colored the body politic. The resurrection of the fully God, fully man, as Christians believe, Jesus of Nazareth, colors the body politics. This is why we have the greatest freedoms in America rather than any other country. Where would you rather live? Here or let's say Saudi Arabia? I'm not picking on the Saudis, but just saying, where would you rather live and why? Why? Because here we have liberty. Here we have the overarching constitution is based on the Judeo-Christian worldview. End of story. Why is it that so many Christians are marginalized? Why is it that even on this YouTube channel, I have to be very careful in what I say? Very careful. Because it can go against community guidelines. In fact, maybe even saying this goes against community guidelines. We either have free speech or we don't. So let's get into this. U.S. government registers domain name aliens.gov. Now, I got this 2 or 3 days ago, but I've been really tied up. I've also been sick and I'm kind of on the mend. So I'm saving it for now. Aliens.gov, sparking expectations that Trump may be about to release classified documents on UFOs. If you look at the interview I did with Jamie Walden just a few days ago, I believe that's been posted. Jamie said that the timetable has been moved up from July to May. Now, I can't prove that. I can't vet that, but I'm just saying the information that he's getting. Look, this thing is accelerating. If you haven't seen my report on the Super Mario movie, which is coming out, you need to watch that because it's the same monologue, the same dialogue, the same verbiage that we're getting in the Steven Spielberg's movie, which basically says, surely the universe, which is so vast, right, must have life elsewhere. Well, I'm not buying that. Jesus, the Father God rolls up the heavens like a scroll. So what is that about? So let's get into this. I love this. There's drop. AI generated image by Grok. Will Trump bring about the disclosure? Behind him, we see, which is a illustration of the gray, which is now being enculturated. When I first came out with this film or with the book way back in 1998, Nephilim and Truth is Here, I mean, I was ridiculed and scorned and everything else. Now, here it is, Donald Trump in the gray. Most people didn't know what grays were. In my opinion, the grays are biological construct. They are avatars. They are meat suits, as Karen Wilkinson, former abductee. We published her book, by the way, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. Need to read it. Do your homework. Just saying. Or remain ignorant the rest of your life. That's okay. So here's the deal. The grays are biological construct. A demon has to inhabit something. Demons are the disembodied spirits of a Nephilim. The Nephilim are the progeny of the fallen angels and human women. I have to say it often because new people come here and they get the two confused, or they think it's all one. They're not. Fallen angels are one entity. Demons are something else. Demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Nephilim are the progeny of fallen angels and human women, creating this hybrid being which was never supposed to be here. This all goes back to the Genesis 3:15 seed war. I mean, how many times have we talked about that? And we need to keep talking about it. Genesis 3:15. Thank you, Gary Stearman, for illuminating that to all of us at the first Nephilim Mounds Conference well over a decade ago in Ohio. And by the way, on our crop circle film, there was the second largest crop circle in the United States and a field of corn that was 8 feet tall. How do you make a crop circle in a field of corn that's 8 feet tall? Well, you can't do it. But that crop circle was there about 3 to 4 weeks before the conference. Gee, I wonder why. Because a group of Christian men for the first time were coming to this area in Nirkahaya and saying that, wait a minute, this is Nephilim architecture. This is fallen angel technology. So all of this is ramping up. It's now, it doesn't go away, and it won't go away. Sightings are through the roof. Absolutely. So let's read the article. We have been reporting here on the Gateway Pundit about Donald J. Trump's directive to his administration to release the classified UFO files to the public. But now, in a development that has gone viral, the domain name aliens.gov has been included in the government's official website. The discrete development ignited speculation that Trump could be about to disclose U.S. intelligence information on whether or not we are alone in the universe. Let's stop right there. If Donald Trump stands up and says something like, my fellow Americans, wrong accent, but if he comes up and says something like that, that we're not alone in the universe, that impacts the entire globe. That is a global event. And so the next question, well, what do you mean we're not alone? How do you know that? What do they look like? In the Spielberg's film, and I walked through this with John Matarazzo's interview, which will be posted up here. John was gracious enough to let me use that interview. But we walked through the Spielberg trailer frame by frame by frame, scene by scene. And there's this one scene in it where the woman is going, are they people? And there's a pause and it cuts to the protagonist in a crop circle, right? Which is just being made. And we show this in our film on crop circles. Do your homework for $5, streaming.lmarzulli.net. You can go check it out. But I digress as usual. So it's happening. It's coming down. The fact that Trump says something that we are not alone in the universe, that's a game changer. That's a global game changer. And I believe things will change like this. Okay, so we've talked about this before, but there's new people that come here all the time. So when we go to 1 Timothy chapter 4, what do we read? The Spirit expressly states that in the latter days, some will depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and the doctrine of demons. There you go. So the question is, are we in the last days? Well, some people can argue that. Some people can say, well, the birth of the church is the first of the last days. Yes, that's true. But God's prophetic time clock, thank you, Hal Lindsey, late great Planet Earth, talked about this decades ago. I read the book when I was like 18 or 19, but I did not become a Christian. It would be another 10 to 12 years before I would come across the line here. But the late great Planet Earth hinges around the idea, the concept that God's prophetic time clock is Israel. You can say what you want about Israel, but That's it. These are the Jews. They're not some of them are Khazarians. I get that. But these are the Jews. There's always been a Jewish presence all throughout the Middle East. And when the Balfour Declaration happened in 1917, the Jews began to immigrate back into what is now Israel. So Amos 9, 14, and 15. Read it for yourself and tell me where I'm going wrong, because you can't. I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. I will bring back the captives of my people Israel. They will build the waste cities and inhabit them. I've been to Israel. The waste cities are rebuilt. They will plant vineyards and drink the wine from them. Check. They will also plant gardens and eat the fruit from them. Check. I will plant them in their land, and never again will be plucked up out of the land I have given them. So if God didn't plant the Jews back in their own land, May 14th, 1948, and I got this from Rabbi Jason Sobel, that week, May 14th, 1948, that passage, Amos 9, 14 to 15, was being read in every single synagogue globally. Not making this up. Let that sink in. Does this mean we give Israel a pass on everything that they do? Absolutely not. Am I a Christian Zionist? I don't think so. I'm a student of the prophetic word, and I watch the prophetic word. But I'm not giving Israel a pass on everything that they do, because they are corrupt, just like every other government are corrupt on this planet, just like human beings are corrupt, right? Okay, what is a good person? How good do you have to be before you're really good? Well, I've never ripped anybody off. Okay, fine, but do you hate anybody? Whoa, okay, I got a bunch of people I hate, they screwed me over. Okay, fine, do what you want. Hate is not a good thing, is it? The word for this year was apoplectic, rage, giving to emotional anger. How much rage do you have in your life? How much rage do I have in my life? What do we do to get rid of it? We go to the cross. We go to Jesus. We go to Jesus, and he takes it from us, because that's what he does. But first we confess our sin, and then he is faithful to purge us from our iniquity. He cleanses us. How does that work? I don't know. But that's why it's a mystery. It's wrapped up in a mystery. Okay, so let's continue. So, breaking, the U.S. government secretly registers the aliens.gov domain name. So we know it's done. That's a gray. Notice the black eyes. They never get the eyes right, because the eyes are the windows to the soul. Even the hybrids, Al Matthews, it's in our films on UFOs. Al Matthews sits down with a hybrid woman. How do we know? The eyes go twang and they shapeshift. They never get the eyes right. She used to wear these dark wraparound glasses so people wouldn't see her eyes. Gee, I wonder why that happened. They can't get the eyes right, because the eyes are the windows to the soul, and only God can give a soul. Let's continue. The domain name Discovery comes almost exactly a month after President Trump announced he was ordering administration officials to release government files relating to UFOs and so-called extraterrestrials. Though the website is not live yet, the government has reserved the domain name for an as yet unknown purpose, registry records show. And we see right here, this is the domain information, aliens.gov. There's the registry domain. So I don't believe this is a hoax. Trump announced that top administration officials were going to track and release government files related to UFOs and so-called extraterrestrials. This is from the White House. Based on a tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP. So there you go. And look right down here. Unidentified aerial phenomena and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. The federal government has never formally confirmed the existence of aliens, but a former deputy assistant secretary of defense intelligence under Presidents Clinton and Bush told the New York Post that U.S. has a jaw-dropping trove of photo and video evidence. However, Christopher Mellon, who's also in the film Disclosure, he's one of the principals in that. He's also the the third rung in the book Run to the Disclosure. We're up to rung number 28, rungsofdisclosure.com, interactive website. Go there. The book has 17, but since then we're up to rung, which posted is either 26 or 27. This is the next rung. So, and there's always a video for the next rung. So rungsofdisclosure.com. However, Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Intelligence during the Clinton and Bush administrations, told the Post last week that the federal government possesses a jaw-dropping trove of photos and videos, the release of which would elevate UFO discussion to another level. So, yeah. Incredible high-speed orb filmed in Yellowstone. Let's take a look at this. Let's just look at it. Watch right there. There it is. Really moving fast. Notice a 90-degree turn, and then it comes out. Wow, pretty cool. Interesting. So in our crop circle film, and that's basically, I want to thank the Gateway Pundit for that, and of course Paul Saran for just writing and doing what he does. Thank you so much. And it's interesting where we are in our film on UFOs. We actually show orbs which seem to be creating crop circles. Now that might be a hoax. Don't know. It's it's an old film, and it shows these orbs going like this in a field of, looks like wheat or rapeseed, whatever. And below the orbs, we see a crop circle forming. Well, in the Spielberg's film, in his trailer, they show exactly the same thing. He's not the orbs, but he's standing in a field, and the crop circle is forming all around him. Folks, the phenomenon is real. The church is asleep. This is the coming Great Deception. There's no doubt about it. This changes everything in a nanosecond. It is a mega lever. It is a mega lever. It changes the entire globe. All of a sudden, we're not alone. So when Paul is writing and circling back to Timothy, that the Spirit expressly states in the latter days, some will depart from the faith, giving heed to the doctrine, or giving heed to seducing spirits and the doctrine of demons. Well, what is the doctrine of demons? We could get into that, but we have a little tract that we give out. What is the truth? Channeled information coming from entities, invisible entities, speaking through someone, through voice to skull or automatic writing or any other occult technique, no bueno. That is the doctrine of demons. Those are seducing spirits. So many will depart from the faith. And we already talked about why Israel is God's prophetic time clock and why we are in literally the last of the last phase. There's no doubt about that. So when Trump stands up, and he's going to stand up sooner than later, Jamie thought May, I don't know. We'll watch and we'll see. We'll be reporting here daily because we do a show every single day. So when that happens, now what? Will many leave the church? There are churches all around where I live in the Santa Monica Mountains. Not one of them, shame on them, has ever invited me to speak at their church. I don't care. I'm not offended. It's fine. Believe what you want to believe. But we've got 10 films on this. Thank you, Gil Zimmerman, my business partner. We've got books, runs of disclosure, that talk about this phenomena. We have answers from a biblical prophetic viewpoint. But the church, and I'm painting with a very broad brush, is too busy doing what it does to actually address the phenomena, which will change everything in a global sense. And guaranteed, people will go up to their pastors and they'll say this: if you knew about this, why didn't you warn us? If you knew about this, why didn't you tell us about it? Why didn't you warn us about it? So I'll say, I'll let that rest. Thanks for coming here. If you think you know Jesus, but you don't know Jesus, then guess what? You don't know him. You have to have a personal relationship with him. It's not religion, it's relationship. And he will guide your steps. He will change your life. He will come into your life. If you're addicted to anything, drugs, pornography, whatever, if you're addicted, he can break that addiction. If there are forces in your life which are holding you in that addiction, he has the power to break that addiction in your life, no matter what it is. If you are despondent and depressed, he has the power and the ability to come into your life, and all of a sudden, without anything changing at all, you feel joy. You have a peace that passes understanding. That's who he is. He is the Prince of Peace. He loves you. He loves me. He will discipline us because that's what he does. Those whom he loves, he disciplines. And so I've been disciplined for 46 years, and I don't shirk away from that. It's all good. So how do you get to know Jesus? You confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. That's it. Don't wait for YouTube to give you a notice that we're another show by L.A. Marzulli. We're here every single day. Thanks for watching. Consider becoming a member. I will be next conference. We're only doing 2 conferences this year at the Prophecy Watchers Conference in Colorado Springs coming up June 4th, the weekend of June 4th. Hope to see you there. So as I mentioned, in 1998, 99, the first book came out, Nephilim, The Truth is Sure. But I was at a conference headed up by Norio. I always give credit. You'll notice that's something we do here. And if you're a Christian, you should take a lesson. Not because it's from me, it's from him. What does the Bible tell us? That we should esteem others higher than ourselves? Just saying. So Gary Schultz and Norio Hayakawa did this little conference at the Little Alien in Rachel, Nevada years ago, 94, 95, something like that, 96. I'd have to go back and look. Anyway, so we're there, and there's the Little Alien is there, and we're off the kitchen. There's a tent, and it was great. It was only attended by maybe 40, 50 people, but it was really one of my first UFO conferences. And I actually spoke to my first abductee at that conference. Anyway, Bob Lazar comes walking in, unannounced, and I got to ask him a few questions. This was in the days before I had cameras or was doing what I'm doing now. Remember, the first book isn't even published. It's just sitting. It's an idea, but I don't even have a manuscript yet. So Lazar has just come out. Bob Lazar has just come out with a new trailer. Let's watch it. I will run the whole thing first, and then I'll go back and tell you what I think scene by scene, or I may stop it because it's easier that way. So here we go. So I'm assuming this is Area 51. Yeah, this would be Area 51, where the saucers are kept. They used to be kept. The Master Lazar
now exists, which proves that there is life elsewhere, and at least one form of that life has been here. As of 1989, that evidence was in the custody of the United States government.
So I'll stop right here. That's a real old shot of Bob Lazar. That's when he first came forward after working at S4, which is S4 is actually where the base is. And he talks about, and he's never changed his story, and now with all these whistleblowers are coming out, and we want to thank Jeremy Corbell, who did a wonderful documentary on Lazar, also George Knapp. I got to meet George Knapp at the 2019 UFO conference held by Tim Alberino. And Tim did a great job on that, but I digress as usual. So let's continue.
Between December of 1988 and April of 1989, I worked as a senior staff physicist in what has to be the most secret project in history.
And you can see right here the saucer. So this thing, this is some great graphics, some great clips, and all this stuff. They're using, whether it's AI generated, I don't know, a Bob Lazar or old clips, but they're doing that. And you'll notice now he's a lot older than the young Bob Lazar that's there. And we see there's the craft right there. So back engineering, you bet. Here we go.
My job in this program was to be part of a back engineering team. This particular disc appeared to be in excellent condition, and because of its sleek appearance, I nicknamed it the Sport model.
Let me stop it. So the question is this: was that given to us? Was it a gift? There's rumors, and I wrote about this. I've written about it. It's actually in one of our films, a 10-box DVD set on UFOs. Did President Eisenhower visit Holloman Air Force Base with the dental thing as the excuse to cover the public? Where's Ike? Oh, he went to the dentist, emergency dental operation. Oh, then that'll fly. People will believe that. This is in the 50s. People believed anything that the media said back then. Now, people go elsewhere. Why? Because of legacy media. Trump said it before he was elected president. The people no longer have faith and trust in you. Most people don't. Legacy media, nonsense. They just spin things. They have an agenda. There's no news anymore. You got to go offshore. But I digress. I'm digressing a lot here. So let's circle back to Eisenhower, because I brought that up and then got lost on a rabbit trail. So did President Eisenhower, did he go to Holloman Air Force Base? Was there a treaty signed with these entities? Very much like the Book of Enoch. There's a quid pro quo. Yeah, you can come in. We'll give you weapon making and show you the art of war and show you the way the planets and the cycle of the moon. Read the book of Enoch, Enoch 1. You know, if you were going to keep another rabbit trail, if you were going to keep one book away from Christians, boy, that's the book that you keep away. Why? Because it opens up the seed war. It talks about the fallen angels coming to earth in the days of Jared on Mount Hermon. The oath. We were slated to go to Mount Hermon, to that very spot where the fallen angels came down. And that stele is, I believe, is in the British Museum, you know, and Doug Hamp did a whole sort of a retranslation of that, but it's right there in the book of Enoch. That passage that I fear you will indeed not agree not to do this thing, and I alone will bear the penalty of a great sin. The Samyaza, the fallen angel, the leader of the 200 watchers that come down in the days of Jared on Mount Hermon, not making this stuff up. And from then, all the mischief begins. This is why Hermon, isn't it interesting how Israel just captured the whole area? Very, very interesting. So the quid pro quo is this. We'll give you access to our population, permission, just like vampire lore. You can't come in until I invite you in. Okay. They stand at the threshold. Fallen angels can't come down and take access until we gave them permission. And I believe we gave them permission. And what did they give us? Just like the book of Enoch. They gave us primitive toys, just like that saucer that you see there. Except in the book of Enoch, they were primitive. These, super high tech. And Lazar states that it was in really good condition. The sports model. Let's continue.
The goal in this program was to see if the technology of the disk could be duplicating with Earth materials. To start up the reactor, of course, we need some element 115. In fact, you need 223 grams, machined into a wedge like this. The program out at S4 consisted of 3 projects: Project Galileo, Project Sidekick, and Project Looking Glass. The file on top was Project Galileo, and as it turned out, that's the project that I was part of. And that clearly referred to reverse engineering a recovered alien spacecraft.
This is great. This is where he changes.
Be a secret from anyone. Should be a little bit real.
It's like,
All this stuff is something that happened to him. It's not who he is.
They're doing everything they can to keep this information secret.
That's encouraged their evidence. I saw a graph to be that, thanks to him.
Now this story spills. And the wrenching.
that's George Knapp. S4, the Bob Lazar story. It's really great. April 3rd, I will be watching it. I'll definitely check it out on Amazon, and we will watch the Bob Lazar story together. I find it really interesting that all this is coming out as almost like lockstep. So Lazar was marginalized by certain people in the UFO community. I won't name names, but Lazar has stuck to his story. And you can always write hit pieces on people. People have written numerous hit pieces on me. There's one guy who's still around. I won't mention the guy's name. I won't give him a platform here, but he has worked against me for decades, against me, because he believes that this whole thing is demonic delusion. So I'm not going to start naming names, but there are people that do not like what we do here. I mean, they stand up and they're very vociferous about it. And you have to ask them. We have to ask them why. Why are you so afraid of what Marzulli is saying? Why? Why is that? If it's all demonic delusion, then people like Karen Wilkinson and Alan Matthews and Emil Jurek and Angela, the people that we interviewed, my business partner Gil Zimmerman and I interviewed in our 10-part DVD series, then their stories just falls. If it's all delusion, then what did we pick up at the Roswell crash site? My first question is, did this person ever go to the Roswell crash site? More than likely not. Did he go there with metal detectors? Thank you, Chuck Zukowski, Frank Kimbler. We found metal that day. We also found this, metal spikes in the debris field. What's that doing out there? Because it throws off a metal detector, and it threw our metal detector off, and this is what we got. We got a metal spike. But we also got pieces of the debris. And we've analyzed that, and it's an unknown aluminum alloy between two known aluminum alloys. So, is it the Nazi bell, as some people are back engineered Nazi craft? Why is it that we've got witness after witness after witness which have come forward telling us that the craft was real, it was retrieved? And then we have a whole story on, 2 stories on Roswell. Exoneration talks about Jesse Marcel Jr. and what the Marcel family went through, and that it was not a weather balloon. So, believe what you want to believe. May this person be blessed by the Lord, and truth will prevail. There's no doubt about that. And when the announcement is made that we are not alone in the universe and we have recovered craft from these entities, now what? And that's already happened, David Grush. It's actually in the book, Rungs of Disclosure. There it is, crashed craft in our possession. I believe that's number 15, David Grush, 15th rung. We're up to rung 27, 28. Want to check it out. Anyway, folks, that's it for today. Consider becoming a member. Your financial support helps keep the lights on and keeps us doing what we're doing. We don't go to conferences anymore per se. We just don't do that. We're here every single day. Why? Because we reach 8,000, 50,000, 60, 70, 80,000 people. We're now up to 268,000 subscribers. Thank you for coming here and giving us your support on a daily basis. And we do a new show every single day. If you think you know Jesus, but you don't know Jesus, then you don't know him. You need to know him personally. How do you do that? You ask him into your heart. You confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord. Believe in your heart God raised him from the dead. You will be saved. What does that look like? When he comes into your life, if you're addicted to something, if you're having marital problems, if your kids are causing, great consternation, you don't know where to turn, you don't know what to do, turn to the Lord, turn to Jesus. It's not an instant cure, but there are times when he comes into our lives and just the situation changes. Just like that, because that's who he is. That's what he does. When they're out there with the disciples in that boat and the storm is raging all around him, he says 2 words: be still. Done. Like a limp dish rag, just whoosh. The storm instantly calm, instantly, because that's who he is. He created you, he created me, he created all life in this universe. He's coming back soon. I am not a date setter, but more than likely next Wednesday. Of course, I say that tongue in cheek. Thanks for coming here. I pray for those who persecute us, who say nasty things about us, who spread rumors and innuendo and untruths. Just saying. There's a lot of that going around in Christian circles. So I'm here with Karen Wilkinson once again. Karen is the author of Stolen CDO Harvest. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you the clip, this interview with Matt Gaetz, and then Karen and I will discuss it. Karen, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, LA. This is my first time back on since the surgery, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. Thank you so much.
We've been praying for you, and I'm glad it was a success, but you've got a ways to go yet. So thanks for Thanks for being a trooper and coming on. So I'm going to share my screen here. Matt Gaetz, bam. And I'm going to go full screen. And here's the clip with Matt Gaetz, because this is really important. Today is April Fool. Is this an April Fool's joke? I don't know. Is Gaetz being forthright and honest? It appears like he is, but we're going to roll the tape and then Karen will weigh in on it. Here we go.
I mean, I had someone come and brief me who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that they could engage in intergalactic communication. An actual uniformed member of the United States Army briefed me on that.
Non-human biologics, interracial alien mating? What the F is going on? Look, wait a second. You had whistleblowers tell you this kind of thing to you? Please unpack.
Yeah, I had a guy who was uniformed. He was a senior enlisted with the United States Army. He came into my office in Crestview, Florida, in a non-classified setting. I had members of my staff there, and what they explained is that the military ran a very secret program where aliens that were living were in forced breeding programs with humans that had been abducted from war zones and from even the caravans of migrants. Now, again, I didn't verify this, but what the whistleblower was telling me is that there were like between 6 and 12 locations around the country where this happened. And what he wanted was a group members of Congress to all show up at the same time at all these different locations so that any of those activities could not be moved. And of course, it's a physical impossibility to get members of Congress to simultaneously show up at like 8 locations at one time. And so that never occurred.
Karen, I don't know what I'm looking at here. I mean, it seems like, and I want to thank the Benny Show for this clip, and this is fair use because we're going to be talking about it. You were taken numerous times. Let's just start at the beginning. Let's start there. You're taken at 4, 5, 6 years old. You think this is normal, just like every other abductee I've talked with. You try to tell people about it. They threaten you. It's all in the book. It's spine tingling. At what point in the film, and we have, just so you guys know, we have a 10-box DVD set. And if you're interested, it's number 4. It's on abductions, and it's spine chilling. I mean, it's just, it'll blow your mind when you see it. We have 2 women and 2 men. So we have Karen and Angela talking about the abductions and their pregnancies. Goes right into what Matt Gates is saying. Then we have Al Matthews and Emil Jur, whose sperm was taken. So I want to start with when you say that you were taken, it looked like an underground facility and there were lots of children there. Speak to that, please.
Right. The places I was taken, there were various entry points. So, which leads me to believe I was in variously different places. And these entry points would be almost, from what I remember, looking like you're going into a parking garage, and you're going down in from level above ground level, and I would be taken down into what like the parking garage, and it would be subfloorways going down, and you couldn't really see what it was going down to the way that it sloped, and then there would be doors that looked like garage door almost type doors, big doors that would then open, and you'd go into another section, and you'd go down again. And then there would be elevators. So there's no reason for me to believe that I was above ground, because I was starting above ground and I'm just going down. Whether it's elevators, whether it's, walkways, what have you, stairwells. So it was clearly underground. There were no windows. There was no outside. It was all very closed in, but huge, massive areas. And there were different ones. So they were different at different times and different places that I was taken. I have so many memories of these different areas, that I have different, that looked different and that were different, but they were clearly underground. They could have even been underwater for all I know. Sure, some of them I don't remember the entry point. And yes, there were, when I was little, there were other children there, and some was very human and some did not. So I don't know if they're hybrid children or children that were breeding mistakes possibly, or something of that nature, maybe experimental, who knows, because they didn't explain those things to me and you were very confused as a child. But for myself and others I've spoken to, we saw humans, people in what looked like military uniforms, but without any specific insignias to identify branches. And when I was little, I didn't know about branches of military anyway, so there were always, to me, it was never a question of whether it was humans working with non-human entities. That was always the case. So to hear something like Matt Gates talking about this, I mean, it's further validation. However, my opinion on this piece, because I listened to the entire interview, is that it was a carefully placed comment. It was buried in with a whole lot of other comments, and he mostly was talking about crashed craft and non-human biologics, but he slipped this in kind of nonchalantly in the middle. And it's interesting that they took that clip from the show, because I think it was very carefully placed. This person he spoke with isn't an official whistleblower, hasn't come before Congress before, hasn't been vetted, clearly was official, and that this happened a little while back and they hadn't come as far along as we have at this point with things being on congressional record. So they weren't even sure if they could, vet or believe this person at the time. But it was extremely credible, the person and the information they were offering. And it was just hard for them to fathom because now with so much information coming out, it's much easier. But I think this is a really carefully placed side comment to get the conversation started. I think he did this purposely without letting, Benny clearly was surprised and shocked.
Yeah, he
was like, go back.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think this was carefully placed calmly. And I think it, just like everything else, we're working with something that's part of a controlled disclosure. It's controlled information that's released as they want it to be released and when they want it to be released. And there's so much going on right now. It's kind of, who's going to pay attention? And I think that's why they release these things when they do. And April 1st, of course, there's some people who are going to say, oh, this is an April Fool's. This wasn't recorded on April 1st. It wasn't done in that context. So no, it's not an April Fool's type of thing. But all of the timing and the placement I found very interesting and a bit suspect.
So we get David Grush in the halls of Congress. This was one of our rungs. By the way, we are up to, I think, run 26 or 27 on the rungs of disclosure. And we're going to try to do some kind of special with, half price off on both books, or we'll figure something out. But because, folks, you need to understand that it's happening and the church is asleep. And most of you out there, most of the people are asleep. Those of you who come here on a daily basis are not asleep because we're almost like white on rice. But I want to walk through it. David Grush is one of the rungs of disclosure. I think he's number 16 in the book. And he stands in Congress and he looks right at Nancy Mace. The cameras are there and he goes, we have retrieved non-human biologics from these craft UFOs, UAPs from these sites. Non-human biologics. Now all of a sudden, Matt Gaetz is talking about a breeding program. As a Christian ufologist, because that's what I am, I'm looking at all this through the lens of a supernatural. And the first place I go is the Matthew 24 discourse. Jesus says, it'll be like the days of Noah when I return. And this is exactly where we are. It's the mingling of the seed. It's a seed war. Karen, speak to that, please.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree. And I know that your audience is well versed on this because of what you've shared and because of their research. But it speaks to, I go back to, this is not demonic delusion. This is not people who are just sharing crazy thoughts or ideas. This is real. It's real. These are real things happening to real people. There's real people that physicality. Really physically in a hospital with doctors really physically going in and scraping my uterus and saying, there is nothing in there, ma'am, when only weeks before there was an ultrasound that said there was. So explain that to me. That's not delusion. These are doctors telling me what's happening. These are real things happening. I'm really up in the middle of the night. People are really taking me against my will. I'm a really scared little kid who can't look out the window at night because I know what's out there. These are things that don't just happen to me. They happen to so many others. And this is where your Bible comes into play. You either believe it or you don't. And if you don't believe it, then you can call it demonic delusion because it makes it easier. That's fine. But those of us who believe it and know the Bible is real, know that this is in there. It's all explained. It's all there. God tells us what's happening, what's going to happen, and how it's going to end. And these things really are happening. We really are, in my belief, in the days of Noah. Yes, and they're breeding. I think there are so many hybrids walking among us, as Dr. David Jacobs said in the title of his book. If you haven't read it, read that book, folks. It's a great book. They're out there, and they've been out here for a long time. This is nothing new. But we have to shine a bright light on it because if you aren't prepared for what's coming, what's going to happen, how the governments are going to handle this, what's going to happen to society, it's going to be shocking. And if you're not spiritually prepared, and if you're not really putting on the full armor of God, and if you don't have yourself spiritually ready, I don't know what you're going to do, because it's going to be a very disturbing time in our lives when this all comes to the forefront. So this is real, folks. It's real. It's happening. As you say, it's burgeoning. It's not going away. And there is just more and more proof out there every day. which leads me into all the scientists who are so embroiled in all this that's happening. Now they're starting to die, to disappear, yes, to be suicided. Then 9 now, 9 in less than a year. 9 people tied into these things. You can look this up on the internet. You can find all kinds of articles about it. Representative Tim Burchett is actually trying to yell it from the Raptors to get people's attention about this because he's concerned. You know, for a while, we were kind of being left alone. But my fear is now I'm seeing this heat up again where too much is, I think, coming out too fast. And they're starting to put the brakes on people and things that are getting in the way of the controlled disclosure. And is that going to stop me? No, I'm not afraid. I've been down this road too many times. God saved me. And if his will, I'll keep doing this. But it's getting scary again. It's heating up. And that just tells you that this is real and we're on the right path and we're on the right track. And it's unfortunate for these people who've lost their lives or gone missing because they were doing good work and they were probably going to be exposing a lot to the public.
You know, there's a scripture. If you don't believe in the physicality of the whole UFO UAP phenomena, if you think that abductions really don't happen, that it's all demonic delusion, then you've got to throw out Genesis 3:15, Genesis 6, the Nephilim, Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. They were here. They're here now. They are walking amongst us. And Jesus warns us it'll be like the days of Noah, which this is why the proper exegesis of Genesis 3:15 is so important. But then when you hop over to Daniel 2:43, their seed will mingle with the seed of men. Whose seed are we talking about? We're talking about the fallen angels. It's not, the guy down the street. It's fallen angels. And it ties right back into the Genesis 3:15 narrative. Thank you, Gary Stearman, for illuminating that to all of us years ago. We knew about Genesis 6, but we never tied it in with Genesis 3:15, which I believe truly is the gateway to the Bible. You disagree with that? That's fine. Good luck trying to figure out what's going on. You'll never get there. You'll never understand what's happening because it's all about the seed. That was the title of Gary's presentation. Ovum was taken from you. Sperm was taken from Emil and Al. And I'll never forget talking to Emil here in the studio where and it's in the film, which just blows me away. He's kind of like, they put locks in my doors and windows, and the next morning they'd find me out on the lawn. And he looks at the camera and he goes, "Explain that to me." And I mean, it's, what is he, some kind of Houdini where he's walking through the wall, where he's picking the lock? And no, he was taken numerous times. Sperm was taken from him. You were impregnated 3 times by these guys. Angela, at least once that we know of. And all these testimonies are in the number 4 DVD. So, Karen, what amazes me is, you go back to 2017, which is the very first rung on the ladder of disclosure. David Fravor on Tucker Carlson show, tic-tac shaped object moves away 50 miles from him in 2 seconds. That defies the laws of physics as we know them. And Tucker asked him, "David, in your opinion, what was this?" And David Grush looks right. I'm sorry, David Fravor. I said David Grush. Commander David Fravor looks right at the camera and says, "Whatever this was not from this earth." And to me, it's a deal breaker, this physicality there. Karen, I'm going to keep the interview short and pithy, and I just want to thank you for coming on because it's just an honor to have you. I know you've just gone through surgery and you're still healing up. Let's keep her in prayer. The surgery, in my opinion, in our opinion, is a direct result from being taken by these entities. And she's not the first that have had all sorts of physical anomalies. This is very common among abductees. Bring us home, Karen, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you. There's just so much more to talk about on this subject, and I look forward to the opportunity to come back and keep doing that because we have to shine a bright light on the truth. Light is the greatest disinfectant, and that is God. He will shine a bright light on all of this and bring that truth to us if we just keep looking and keep helping shine a bright light on this. So share this with your friends. Let people know. It's so important that we just take the time to read the Bible, understand the fullness and the truth of God's holy word, especially, now we're in a time of the year where we remember Jesus' sacrifice for us, his sacrifice, the pain he went through, the torture he went through, his grandma, anything we will ever go through. So no matter what's happening in our lives, in my life, I know that there was a one who sacrificed and suffered more, and that's what's most important here. And I will keep doing everything I can to shine a bright light on this. Thank you for the opportunity to help me do that.
Well, thank you for being bold and coming in at a moment's notice. I texted you this morning and you said yes. Folks, we're gonna pull all the stops out on this. Okay. So for $19.99, you get Karen's book right here. That's the normal price. You get Runs of Disclosure absolutely free. So you're getting Runs of Disclosure completely free and Karen's book. So for $19.99, you get both books. Runs of Disclosure for free and Karen's book, $19.99. I can't do any better than that. Do your homework. Get these books, read them twice. Go to runsofdisclosure.com and realize that the book only goes up to rung number, I think, 18. We're up to rung 26 or 27. It's happening. Do your homework. 2 for the price of 1. Great deal. What I should say is Karen's book, and you get Runs of Disclosure absolutely free. LAMarzulli.com, LAMarzulli.com. Thank you, Karen, for coming on the record. Really appreciate it. Keep her in prayer, folks. She's still recovering from a horrific surgery, but she's doing well. And thank you, Karen, for coming on at such short notice. Appreciate it. So I'm just going to roll a little bit of this just to show you Whitley Strieber and what he's saying here. Here we go. This is what it says. I just want to read this to you. Whitley Strieber. An alien implant was inserted behind Whitley Strieber's ear in 1989 while he was wide awake by people connected to the visitors. Those are the Greys, okay? It was put in 1989. I was wide awake when it was done. This is Strieber talking. It was like having an unbelievable AI. Only whatever's on the other side of it is not artificial, but brilliant. The CIA scanned it and desperately wanted it removed, but he refused. Now it turns on during interviews and helps him write with direct communications. What do you think is really on the other end? Proof of UFO and alien contact, government tech, or something beyond our understanding. Have you or anyone you know experiencing something similar? Drop your thoughts below. So I just want to show you what Mr. Strieber looks like. Let's go to full screen here. I'm going to keep the audio down. I just want to show you Whitley. So here we go. So that's Whitley Strieber. And I'm going to move on and I'm going to show you part of our slide presentation, one of my slide presentations that I do. I will go to full screen here in just a second. There we go. Okay, so you gotta pay attention. Right here is the implant. See the number 65? Directly above the number 65, you will see what looks like a little grain of rice. That's the implant. That's the X-ray. That's our X-ray that we paid for, and we were under the protocol of Dr. Roger Lear. And he had a website called The Alien and the Scalpel. This is years ago. It's in our Watcher's phone. You can watch the whole thing, but I'm going to give you the slideshow now. So that's the implant. That's what it looks like. And we tried to find the implant for well over an hour and 20 minutes, whereas 2 weeks prior to that, when we did the pre-op, we found the implant like that. That little ball with the black shadow underneath, that is the implant. And what prayer in that operating room changed absolutely everything. We couldn't find the implant. Couldn't find it. One prayer, which went something like this: Father, if there are forces which are cloaking this device, I pray that you would break their power and do it soon. And, Rick and I are looking at each other, and we're in a room full of non-believers, as it were. All of a sudden, the implant, there it is. What's that, guys? The implant. Dr. Matriciana, you've heard me talk about this before. This is the ultrasound one, let's say, and he's like looking at it like this, trying to figure out what's going on. Well, that was the implant. And before I even show you this, there are folks, well-meaning folks, brothers and sisters in Christ, who do not believe in the physicality of the UFO phenomena. So they'll dismiss this. They won't even look at it. When I started talking about implants, which is circa 1999, the year 2000, I was mocked. There was one guy that actually went after, and he had to write an apology on a podcast because he took something completely out of context. This is years ago. You forgive, you move on, which is what the waiting room, Mr. Segway is here, is all about. So all about forgiveness. We have to forgive everybody, even those who say nasty things against us and make up things. Got to forgive them. Got to love them. That's what we're called to do. That doesn't condone their actions, but that's what can't have bitterness in our heart. Can't have anger in our heart. And that was all for free. A little rabbit trail, LA. So little rabbit trail for free. But when we started talking about implants, I was ridiculed. Meanwhile, these people who ridicule just sit back, they never go anywhere, they never do anything. But they've got all these books and they'll tell you all about it. And God bless them. I know I'm bagging on this a little too much today, but it does get annoying because we actually took out an implant. We are the only Christian ministry, Christian film company ever to remove an implant from a person. So there's the incision. This is Emil. He's laying in the operating room, and we make the incision. Dr. Matriciani makes the decision. Dr. Roger Lear is the hands that are. Dr. Matriciani is holding the spreader tool. Dr. Lear has the gauze and wiping up the blood, and that's a close up. Thank you, Richard Shaw. So then the next thing we do is we spread it apart, and you can see the spreader. And then we get the first shot of the implant. You can see the tweezers are holding onto the implant while the scalpel is cutting the tissue around it. Not making this up. Not making this up. UFOs are real, burgeoning, not going away. The abduction phenomenon is real. They are implanting people. They take them against their will. They perform sexual experiments with men and women. The men they take the sperm from, the women the ovum from. Sometimes the women are impregnated. Most of this is in our film. In our 10-box DVD series, thank you, Gil Zimmerman, my business partner. We created 10 films on this. If you're a pastor, you're not sure about what you're looking at here, and I'm not sure how this equates into biblical prophecy and end times and all this stuff, shoot me an email, la@lamarzulli.net, la@lamarzulli.net. We'll send you resources for free to get you up to speed. I'll do a free video chat with you if you've got any questions. This is the coming Great Deception. This may be, underline the words, may be, the prototypes for the mark of the beast. We don't know, but it's certainly, whoever is doing it is spending a lot of time, resources, and energy to create these things. Emil was abducted when he was 5 years old. He was implanted. He carried that implant right below the knee for about 40 years. We removed it. So watch this. That's Dr. Roger Lear in the foreground. Dr. Matriciana is next to the ultrasound machine, which we use to find the implant. And someone put the implant, and we call him Bill, but it's a male. He came forward. But why did they do it? That's what it looks like. It looks like a grain of rice. And again, why? What is this leading to? Why would they do something like this? Let's explore it. Is there a breeding program? Are hybrids walking amongst us? There is a breeding program. Jesus reminds us it'll be like the days of Noah. What differentiates the days of Noah, in my opinion, is the presence of the fallen angels. Fallen angels are not demons. There was a well-meaning pastor who basically must have watched one of my shows here and started talking about the differentiation between fallen angels and demons, because fallen angels don't need bodies. They already have bodies, immortal bodies. Are those the tall whites that are reported? Don't know. That's conjecture, but I'm leaning towards that. But Nephilim are the progeny of fallen angels and human women, creating this hybrid being known as the Nephilim. The flood of Noah is there to completely wipe out the Nephilim, but they appear again and again and again and again. And then Jesus says it'll be like the days of Noah when he returns. Everyone knows what the days of Noah looks like back then, because I heard me talk about this before, because 2,000 years ago, there was no Cephite theory, which is now taught in many seminaries. And the Cephite theory was created out of thin air by this guy called Julius Africanus, and Augustine adopted that. We all go into the Dark Ages for basically 1,000 years until Gutenberg invents the printing press. They start printing the Bible. The common man reads it. And then, finally, you get into modernity in the 19th and 20th century, 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, where people have access to the Bible and are reading this. This is where the whole rapture deal comes in. It was written right there in Thessalonians, right? And Corinthians. No one made this up. Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep. We shall be changed in a moment, the twinkling of an eye. At the last trump, a trumpet will sound, and the perishable will be clothed with imperishable. The mortal with immortality. We all will be changed. The Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God. The dead in Christ will rise first. We who are alive and remain will be caught up. Rapunzel, there it is. to greet the Lord in the air, and so shall we evermore be with the Lord. I'm not making this up. It's in your Bible. I just told you where it was. 1 Corinthians 15:52, 1 Thessalonians 4:16, I believe. There it is, right there. I could be wrong on the Thessalonians address. Forgive me if I am. I'll probably get 15 emails on that. So the Genesis 6 narrative states, well, let me go back up. Genesis 3:15 is the seed war. So the differentiation of the seed war, or the differentiation of the offspring of that seed war, are the Nephilim. The Nephilim are destroyed in the flood, which becomes the demons that wander the earth. How do we know this? The book of Enoch. Jesus' warning, it'd be like the days of Noah. Everyone knows what he's talking about. Why? Because the bones of the Nephilim are openly on display. Daniel, their seed shall be with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. Daniel 2:42. Whose seed are we talking about? See where this is going? It's there in the biblical prophetic narrative, but unfortunately, most Christians have no idea of what is going on. And I think that's it. That's all. This is a great presentation. I haven't done it in a while. That's Al Matthews. Al, I did an interview with him on our Deception 2026 conference. Check that out if you have not seen it yet. You can go for $20. You can watch 10 different speakers. Amazing. My interview with Al Matthews, Karen Wilkinson is there, Vicky Joy Anderson, Gary Stearman, Mando Gonzalez. Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. Larry Ragland, Alan DiDio, Tim Alberino. There's one more. I'm trying to think of who it is. Well, I know it's me. I'm in there too, but I left out. Oh, Derek Gilbert. And by the way, folks, pray for Derek. Keep him in your prayers. He's really going through some stuff. Lift him up as often as you can. Derek and Sharon, they're having major health issues, and they covered your prayers. So please. Also, Ruth, our ski buddy's Bob Lovely wife, she had a knee replacement. Please keep her in your prayers. Thank you. Also, Gay Lee lost her husband very unexpectedly, very young. She came home from work and found him dead on the floor. Unbelievable. Keep her in your prayers, please. Carolyn Rankin, her husband Jim passed away just a little while ago. So I'm integrating more of this, how to get saved, keep people in prayer. Please don't inundate me with emails. We get too many already. Can't possibly keep up with them. So here's the question. If you think you know Jesus, but you don't know Jesus, then you don't know Jesus. That's real simple. Oh, yeah. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I went to mass as a kid. That's not knowing Jesus. Yeah, I went to the Presbyterian church. Yeah, I was an altar boy. Yeah, that's a ticket. That's not knowing Jesus. Unless there's a personal relationship with the living God, then there is no connection. How do you get that? Well, you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe that God raised him from the dead. And there's forensic evidence of the greatest event in all of history, the resurrection of the fully God, fully man, Jesus of Nazareth. Check it out. Check out our Shroud film. It'll blow your mind. It's not a forgery. There's no paint. It's not a medieval concoction. Those are all the naysayers that don't like the evidence, the scientific evidence that was found on the Shroud. Why? Because it points to a supernatural worldview, and they don't like a supernatural worldview. That's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Become a member. For $10 a month, you get access, 10% off everything in the store. Plus, when we do releases, you get special access to that. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again with another show tomorrow.
Death comes for us all. Today, it came for Bob.
This is your life, Mr. Frisbee. You can call me Mr. O. Time does not exist here. We will go through every person you have ever wronged and everyone who has wronged you.
I can't forgive him! Bob, come down here.
Aunt Mary?
You cannot enter heaven with hatred in your heart.
Take my hand, Bob. We'll go together. Are you escaping, Bob?
Stay back!
Bob Frisbee must face every sin of his past. Will he find forgiveness in his heart or surrender to the darkness? Find out in the brand new novel by L.A. Marzulli, The Waiting Room.